George, it's nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today on news of this $1 billion worth of contracts with the U.S. government. You know, Don mentioned the stock move, though, over the last 2 months. And I think what a lot of investors are wondering about the antibody drugs now is, as these antiviral pills are working their way through the FDA, what role do your drugs play, the antibody drugs, when we have easier to take pills for COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question, Meg. Sorry. Look, I think the important thing to remember is we had good data last week on an intramuscular application. We did a clinical trial comparing the IM, single injection, versus the IV administration of the antibodies, and we were able to demonstrate non-inferiority, comparable efficacy. So patients will have a choice between getting, a single treatment. Injection of an antibody or taking pills for some days. So the pills are a great addition. They're great for the world. I think Pfizer did a wonderful thing, allowing manufacturers to supply them to the developing world. But the antibodies are safe. They're highly effective. They're a one and done treatment, and they're not going away. So I think they have an important role to play. They're very effective, and they can treat patient populations that aren't addressable by the small molecules, for example, prophylaxis in immunocompromised patients, and potentially other patient populations as well. So I think it's great for the world to have the small molecule drugs. I think antibodies are going to have an important role to play in the control of this disease for the foreseeable future.
Well, tell us what kind of demand you've been seeing over the past few months for your medicine, both here in the United States and in Europe, as we've been seeing these case numbers go up so significantly.
Yeah, look, we've had great demand for the antibody, $1 billion sales to the U.S. We've sold so far, we have hard orders for 750,000 doses. Some of that includes the U.S., but certainly not exclusive to the U.S. We've been selling in many other countries. Countries that have bought sotrovimab and have used it are coming back to order more. I think that speaks to the quite remarkable real-world efficacy that countries are seeing when they follow patients who've been treated with sotrovimab. It's a great antibody. It covers all the variants. And I think an important consideration is that it's not specific for COVID. It certainly is an effective antibody against COVID, but also against SARS, also against many other coronaviruses. So not only, I think, do we have an antibody that stands up well to all the variants we're seeing from COVID, but potentially can help in future coronavirus pandemics as well.
Right. The ability to stand up against all those variants is obviously so important, and one of the really powerful things about your drug. Tell us about the kind of surveillance that you guys are doing. What kinds of risks you see out there? Is Delta just so contagious and so successful at spreading that it doesn't really have any competitors in terms of variants that could come along? Or what are you seeing in terms of risks of a potential new variant on the horizon?
Yeah, I think what we've learned from this pandemic is we should never be complacent and say that the currently circulating variant is the one that's going to be with us for a while. Delta is here. It's obviously more infectious than the strains that it supplanted. It could be that future variants will be variants of the Delta rather than a new variant coming out of the blue, but it's too early to say. It's important to note that this COVID can go between humans and animals. And so as long as it has animal reservoirs and the virus can go into animal populations, mutate, generate new variants, and come back into humans, we're not going to be completely out of the woods. So it's really important to have treatments, antibodies, whatever, that can stand up to not only the current variants, but likely to variants that arise in the future. And we feel very good about sotrovimab. It certainly is standing up well to all of the currently circulating variants. Every time there's a new one sequenced, there are millions of sequences now, we test. And so we have tested all the circulating variants of concern, variants of interest, retain activity against all of those, as well as other coronaviruses. So it's a really important point, and we think we have a real leg up.